Hello, Post Falls community. My name is Jim Putman, and I'm the pastor at Real Life Ministries here in Post Falls. And I get the opportunity today to be here with the superintendent of schools in Post Falls, Dina Nakarada. And there are a lot of people in our community that make our community what it is. And it's a real special place. And we got people in it, we got problems. And that's true everywhere, because the world can be a tough place. But we have some amazing people here who actually are selfless, they care, and Dina and her team here at Post Falls, it's one of those teams. And so I get the opportunity to be here with you guys and with you. And here's the purpose of this video that we're putting together. We're going to talk a little bit about how the schools are funded here in Idaho. And I know we have maybe people that didn't really pay attention to that, don't know how it works, and you lived here for years. I mean, honestly, when I sat down with Dina and the superintendents here in the area, I didn't understand how it works. So you can live here a long time and not understand. But secondly, we have people that are moving into the area that come from other states and other ways in which this it gets played out. And we want you to be aware of how it happens here. What does this state require? What does this community need? And the reason I'm involved in this and our church is involved in this is because we care about kids in our area. And we have great homeschool parents. We have great Christian schools in our area, and we are blessed, in my opinion, and I come from a teaching background, we in Idaho have it so good in comparison to so many other places. And so a lot of times people come to the state angry about what they're seeing nationally or where they came from, and we want you to know what happens here, and it's different. So don't assume, don't come angry, come curious, but we get the opportunity to talk today, and I get to ask you some
whatever
questions.
You want. Yes,
all right.
Whatever you want.
All right, so let me ask you this question. Explain to us how the levy system works in this area. And I was kind of shocked to see how it worked. Even the titles they give it are very misleading,
yes.
Not on purpose, but they use words
like supplemental.
Like supplemental levy.
Yes.
Like, for the extras, but that's not really how it works here. So explain how the levy system works.
Sure. So basically, school districts in Idaho get three major funding sources. We get funding from the state, we get funding from the feds, and we get funding from local property taxes. And then there's a tiny little bit, if you were to look at a graph that would show additional local revenues, and those would be like ASB funds or funds if a school district offers childcare and the parents pay for it and that kind of thing. So in 2006, the funding for public schools in Idaho changed quite a little bit. There was a push to provide a $260 million property tax relief, and basically Idaho code provided for maintenance and operations levies built into those property taxes. That went away. A 1 cent sales tax was added, and that sales tax was supposed to fill the gap that the property tax relief basically left behind. Well, what happened was the 1 cent sales tax was not enough, and the recession hit, and so the legislature said, well, districts, if you need money, you can access supplemental levy to basically fill the shortfalls that the new funding created.
So when you talk about supplemental, it makes it sound like
it's extra.
It's extra.
It's not extra.
It's not extra.
It's not extra.
So what does the supplemental levy pay for?
So if I may, I'd like to back up just a little bit and kind of talk about the pots of money that we get from the state and give some examples so that then it'll make more sense.
Okay.
So we get a salary-based apportionment that pays for, it quote unquote, pays for salaries and PERSI, the retirement system. We get discretionary funding, which is not discretionary, unless you consider providing health care for your employees discretionary, turning on the lights and keeping the heat on discretionary, and filling holes of state or federal mandates.
Meaning they make a mandate, but they don't tell you how you're supposed to pay for it.
Correct. And so discretionary funds pay for the things that we are required to do that we are not fully funded on. And then we receive a pot of money for transportation. But what I will tell you is in the Post Falls School District last year, We received $1.5 million for transportation expenses. We expended $2.71 million. So there's a shortfall there. So when we talk about the supplemental levy, the levy comes in to pay for things that we are required to do that the state funds do not cover. So let's talk a little bit about salaries for a second. Last year, the Post Falls School District, on average, received $49,808 from the state for our certificated staff. We paid $55,000. So there's a $5,200 gap that needs to be filled in per employee somewhere. Right. That money comes from our fundamental levy. Right. Our support staff, we have 776 employees in our school district. About half of those are our support staff. Think paraprofessionals in classrooms, our security officers on campus, our school resource officers, school nurses, transportation, IT, our finance department. I mean, the list goes on and on. Maintenance. All of those folks, the state gave us $13.89 an hour for those folks. The district average is over $19 an hour. So that money has to come from somewhere, and it comes from our fundamental levy. And honestly, our starting wage,
which they call
supplemental.
But you just changed the name.
I've been
on
saying
purpose.
fundamental, and I'm going to call it fundamental all day long, Jim. I am, because it's not supplemental.
Well, no, I agree with you, because when you make the point it's not supplemental,
it's not.
You got to change it, because that's misleading.
I agree. Kind of like discretionary.
Right.
What's discretionary about healthcare? Right. What's discretionary about turning the heat on and turning the lights on? That's
well,
not
in our
discretionary.
Culture, what's discretionary about having a police officer down at the school?
Right. Right. And there's zero funding for school safety. Extracurricular activities, zero funding for extracurricular activities and athletics. All of that comes from our fundamental levy. Yeah. Maintenance is another great example. You hear about lottery money quite a little bit.
Kids don't make that big of a mess.
No, especially when you've got 1,600 of them coming through your high school every day.
You don't need that. Just let that go.
But when we talk about maintenance, and you hear often about, support the Idaho lottery, it funds schools, right? You hear that commercial on TV. Mm-hmm. Well, in our school district, this year we were going to receive just over $500,000, might be a little close to $600,000. Idaho statute requires our district to pay at least $1.2 million to maintain our buildings. Now, we have 900,000 square feet of buildings to maintain. And I would put forth that 1.2 million is not enough to maintain 900,000 square feet of buildings. So some of our fundamental levy dollars also go to support maintaining our buildings that our patrons have paid for.
Yeah. Some people would go, man, the government's really broken. And it is. We know it is nationally, but there's people you don't blame for that. You don't blame the school district for what's happening at the state level. And that's always an important thing for me to go, all right, it's broken, but what's the cost of not filling in there with a levy? Right. The problem goes to the kids and to the families that live here and to the teachers trying to stretch things a mile and try to figure out how to do. That's a very stressful deal.
Yes.
And then when you think about what it's like to work with kids now in a lack of discipline and help at home with homework and the society that we're in. I came from a teaching background. My family did. I got 3 sisters that are teaching right now. It's like they're social workers, counselors, trying to discipline and teach.
Yep. It's a big job.
And then you guys trying to be the supportive, help make it all run, man. All right, well, okay, I could go down that road a long ways. But when you're talking about even athletics, I am who I am. I wrestled here in college, and I got through college because of education or because of sports and all that. That's part of the supplemental / fundamental budget as well.
It absolutely is. I mean, every ounce of any extracurricular activity that's happening in Post Falls comes from our fundamental levy.
So
There
how about
is
this?
$0 of state
Let's just
support.
say no more sports or extracurriculars, and send the kids home so they can watch more TV, do more video games, have less supervision, more energy to just do more stuff with parents. Let's do that.
I don't think that's a very good idea. What I will tell you is, even during the recession, at that time I was the high school principal, and we have a district-wide budget meeting every year where we bring in parents and staff, and every department and every school gets to say these are our priorities. And at that time we were talking about what not to cut because we were in the middle of the Great Recession. And I stood up, and I'll never, even our board chair now, Michelle Lippert, said, "I remember you saying, whatever you do not cut activities and athletics." It is so critical.
I would have
for
never
our
graduated
kids.
from high school.
It's so critical.
Yeah.
It's so critical.
Well, I guess I'm sitting here going, okay, we're talking about having a healthy community for all of us to live in.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. You're not going to have that if you don't have school system that is running the way it ought to.
Well, and to that point, I think it's important for people to know that our fundamental levy ask is relatively low. It's actually very low for a district our size. And part of the reason that we are keeping that fundamental ask low is because when you look out the window, you can see that our town is growing. And Idaho requires taxpayers to build buildings. There is no state match. And you have to have a supermajority in order to get those buildings built. And so we are trying to make sure that we are being very fiscally responsible with the tax dollars that we ask for from our community. And this year we are asking for a renewal. We've had a fundamental levy for 36 years. We're asking for a renewal of the $4.955 million, but we are also asking for an additional $1,003,551.17 for school safety. We have some very significant safety needs in our district. We're unique in that we have about half of our buildings that are 50 to 75 years old and the other half that are relatively new. And in our senior buildings, we need to build secure vestibules so that there is a stopgap before you're into the building. Right now, we have one school that has access control. We want all of our buildings to have access control, whereby, yes, you're still buzzed in, but at a certain time, the doors are locked automatically, and all the exterior doors have sensors. So the office is notified if there's any exterior door ajar, so we can make sure that that door gets closed. Our security cameras, 70% of our security cameras are at the end of life or past the end of life and are still managing to record. Do you have a cell phone from 2008 that you still use?
No, I don't.
Yeah, the pixel picture has changed immensely in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
So we have 70% of our security cameras that need to be upgraded and updated to 2023.
So, I mean, here's the deal. When I look at what you have in the supplemental, fundamental, it's not supplemental.
No.
And then some people will say, okay, but we have so many people moving in here.
Yes.
And so aren't the taxes that we get from that going to help pay for some of this?
It's a great question. So school districts are taxed, they're not the same as other taxing entities. When we ask for, in this case, $5,958,551, that's all we get. So we don't get an increase each year. When your assessed value goes up, we don't get more money. We get what we ask for. And so our taxpayers should be seeing their tax bill go down. And if you were to look between 2020 and 2022, even with assessed values going through the roof, your tax bill in Post Falls has either remained relatively flat or actually decreased. And we expect that same thing will happen again, even with this additional $1 million for student safety. We expect the average Post Falls taxpayer will see no increase in their tax bill to the Post Falls School District.
Okay, so let me just move on to a little bit different subject.
Okay.
Most parents and grandparents, I hope, and even for me, you know, I had one kid that went to homeschool, one kid went to a Christian school, one kid went to a public school, because each of my kids were a little bit different seasons of life. I now am a grandparent, and none of my kids go to public school yet, but I'm for this because you can't have a safe community without all of this. And I think most of us go, it isn't just about me and my checkbook, it's about a community that we live in, and we make decisions as a group that we pay into for the safety of our own community. I hope everybody kind of has that more of a other-centered rather than just me-centered kind of perspective. But when I look at, okay, we do believe education is important, we do want to pay for education, but we don't want things we don't believe in
Sure.
being taught to our kids.
Sure.
And we've talked about this several times. I'm going to give you, I know the truth of this because I know many of the teachers, I know what you guys are doing and what you're not.
Right.
But again, there are people here in this community that came from other places where they did lie, where they did do things in Chicago or wherever else, and they
Sure.
are secretly trying. And so it makes it hard to believe that the people here aren't doing that. But you're not teaching critical race theory. You're not promoting, you know, transgenderism and all the different indoctrinations that are out there.
No.
You guys have always been very concerned about reflecting the moral values of this community, and this is a conservative area.
Yes.
And you guys have stuck to the major things. And I've gotten the opportunity to have many conversations and know what's happening, but I want you to be able to say it. Look them right in the eye and say, this ain't happening.
Well, I can tell you that it's not happening. And what I would also say is I would encourage anyone who is interested in looking at our curriculum or visiting our classrooms to do so. We don't have anything to hide, and everyone's more than welcome.
Yeah. And so I'm in this position where getting to be in partnership with the school district and try to help and the mutual relationships that we have, I feel really good about the direction in spite of the craziness. And there are people here, there are problems. That's our society. You're not going to find that place. For me, in my view, this side of heaven, that place isn't going to happen.
Sure.
But we get to make some decisions that make a safer place. And you guys are working so hard to try to do that. Is there anything you would want to say to the people that you want them to know before this levy is that we haven't maybe discussed?
Well, I think people need to know how easy it is to vote. Right now, absentee ballots are available. If you go to idahovotes.gov, you get online, you can sign up for every single election this year, and the ballots will come directly into your mailbox. Idaho also allows you to vote early. So 3 weeks before the election, you can actually drive to Coeur d'Alene if you want to vote in person and get your sticker and vote early. But the biggest thing is we need our community to support our public schools for the very reasons that you shared, and because there's 6,050 kids that are depending on us. And I just really encourage people to engage in the process and to make sure you vote on March 14th. Yeah.
And I would really suggest that if you come curious and you ask good questions, I think you'll be really pleasantly surprised. You know, I just want to say I'm really proud of our people here and thankful to be a part of this community. And it's just good for a reason. We want to keep it that good, but that means you need to embrace the process and you need to get involved, and we need to take the steps we can. And this is one of them. So it's been really nice.
Thank you so much. As always, I just appreciate our partnership so much and appreciate everything that you do for our community. So thank you.
Oh, no, we're in it together, and we'll just do our part. So appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you.